Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of Intro to HTML5 Game Development. In part 2, I showed you guys how to write lines of code that would draw shapes and text onto your canvas. In this video, we're going to cover how to draw pixel art and regular images onto your canvas. Before we get started, I'm going to delete a lot of the code we wrote in the last video, but you don't have to do that. It'll just make it easier to see what we're doing. And just as a reminder, to test your program, hit save. And then open the file using index.html in your web browser, and you just have to hit refresh, and it'll update based on the changes in your code. The other thing you're going to have to do before we get started is to find an image online that you want to use in the drawing we're going to be doing today. So I've gone ahead and found a smiley face online that I liked, and I saved it in the same folder as my index and main.js files. So if you put the image you want in this folder, we're going to be able to draw it. So the first thing you're going to need to do to draw an image is to create an image variable. So to do that, the first thing you need to do to create a variable is type var, which stands for variable. The next thing we need to do is name our variable. So since it's an image, I'm just going to call it img for short. And we're going to set it equal to something. So we need to set it equal to new space image with a capital I. And then after image, we do both parentheses and a semicolon. So this is saying, okay, we have a variable named image, and it's going to be of the type image. So it's going to be able to do the things images need to do, like be drawn and stuff like that. So the next thing we need to do is tell the computer what image this is, what file it's referencing. So to do that, we have to set the source of the image. To do that, we type img.source src, and we set it equal to the string of our file path. So in this case, because we've put the image right into our folder, we just have to give it the name of this image, whatever you named it. And we do that in quotation marks. So my file is smileface.ping, so I just have to type smileface.ping with a semicolon after the quotation mark. So now we've created an image, and we've told the computer what that image actually is. Alright, so now that we've created our image variable, the only thing we have to do now is draw the image on the screen. To do that, we're going to be learning the drawImage function, which is a new context function. So in previous videos, we learned context functions like drawRect, arc, path. Now we're going to be learning drawImage. So to call the drawImage function, type ctx.drawImage, and in parentheses, first we type the name of the image we're drawing, the name of our variable, which is img. And the next two elements we put in here is the position of the image on the screen. So just remember that the top left corner of your screen is the origin, so it'll be known as 0, 0. So if you want your image to be in the top left corner of the screen, you would type 0, 0, and then a semicolon at the end. So we're going to save, and we're going to refresh our browser. Alright, it didn't work. Okay, so this is one issue that I need to highlight. When you're drawing an image, an issue comes up sometimes because you're trying to draw an image too close to after you're actually creating the image. So by that I mean, we create an image in line 7. In line 8, we tell the computer, okay, the image is actually at this place on the computer. And then in the next line, we're already trying to draw it on the screen. The problem is that this image hasn't loaded yet. It needs a few seconds to actually load all the data regarding the image. And so when we actually try to draw it, it isn't there, so it's not drawing anything. So there's a fix for this. We need to tell the computer, okay, don't run this line of code yet, the drawImage function. Instead, we're going to wait until the image is ready to be drawn. And once it is ready to be drawn, then we want to draw it. So to do that, an image has an onload attribute. So to access it, type img.onload. So this onload is like an event that happens. So once image loads, it'll trigger this onload. So whatever we set it equal to, that will be what runs when onload is triggered. So to set it equal to something, hit space and equals. And so we're going to set equal to a function, which I'll explain in a second. So type function and then empty parentheses, and then use the curly bracket, which it should add another one that ends it for you. So just hit enter. Then after the second ending bracket, hit a semicolon. So this is saying, okay, on load, once the image is done loading, execute whatever is following that. So we've set it equal to a function. A function is basically a sequence of code that runs whenever we call the function. So this is all lines of code up here. And these lines of code run once the main.js is loaded. It'll run through all the lines of code. But sometimes we don't want our code running right away. We want some code running later, not initially. So this code we can put into functions, and that won't run once main is loaded. But once we call that function, we can run the code later. So this works perfectly for our drawing problem. We want to run some code, but not until image has been loaded. So once image has been loaded, this function will be called, and all of the lines we put in it will be run as well. So we're just going to take this draw image line, and we're going to put it in the onload function. So we're going to save it, and we're going to test our work. And as you can see, an image has been drawn on the top left of the screen of my face. Okay, so one nice thing about this draw image function is that it is pretty flexible. There's multiple ways to call this depending on what you're doing. So for example, I could add more elements to this parenthesis group. So after the 0, 0, which defines where the origin of the image is, I can then say what I want the size of the image to be. So right now it's showing its actual size, which is like 400 pixels by 400 pixels in my computer. But let's say I wanted it only to be 100 by 100. I would type 100, 100. I would save, and let's test it. Okay, so as you see, it's shrunken down to 100 pixels by 100 pixels. So this is how you would size the images you're drawing. Alright, so far you know how to draw images as long as you're drawing the whole image. But a lot of times in game development, we're not drawing the whole image on the screen every time. So a lot of times we use these sprite sheets, which are images comprised of smaller images, and this is how we load images into our game. So this is really helpful because it takes a lot less time for the computer to load all of the images since it's just one big image. And instead of drawing all these different images, we're actually telling the computer, okay, draw this part of the image. So first you're going to draw the image of Mario starting to run, and then the image of him speeding up, and then the picture of him jumping. So those will all be within one image. So for that reason, we need to learn how to draw parts of the image, not the whole image. So that's what we're going to be learning now. So I'm going to delete out everything in the draw image function, and we're going to start over. So the first thing that goes into our draw image function every time is the image variable that we created. Okay, so now the next 4 bits of information that go in this function are going to be telling the computer what parts of the image we want to show. So let's look at my image. Let's say I only want to show the top half of this image. So like just the eyes and cutting out the mouth section. So to do that, I have to say what parts of the image we want. So the first bit of info is going to be where do we want the image to start. So I'm going to put in 0, 0, which references the top left corner. And then I'm going to tell it, okay, go down to here. This is the amount of the image we want to keep. So to do that, I need to give the width and height of this section. Now the width of this is going to be equal to the width of the image. So if the image was 1,000, then it would be 1,000 wide here. If it was a really small image that was 50 pixels wide, then it would be 50. It all depends on the size of the image. So since I want the whole width of the image, I just have to reference the width of the image. So to do that, hit comma and then img.width. So this is saying, okay, however long the image is, that's how much I want to keep. So we're going to keep the whole width of the image, but we're not going to keep the whole height of the image. We only want half of the height, and the other half of the height is going to be cut out. So to do that, comma, type in img.height and divide it by 2, because we don't want the whole height, we only want half of it. So this is going to be saying, starting at 0, 0, which is right here, I want the whole width and half of the height. This is going to be my new picture. Okay, so that's the first half of this function call. The next 4 bits of information are the same bits we typed in before. It's specifying where on the screen we want this picture to be shown and how big we want it to be. So I want it to be in the top left corner as before, but a little bit down, not totally in the top left. So I'm going to type 50, comma 50. So this is saying, okay, this image is going to be displayed like around here at 50-50, which is 50 pixels from the left and 50 pixels from the top. So the next 2 bits of info are the size of the image. So let's say I want this to be really large. I'm going to make the width 400 and I'm going to make the height 200. So let's save. And the reason I chose these numbers is because I'm cutting out half the height, the image is probably going to be bigger in the width than the height. If I were to make the width and height both 400, then it would be all misconfigured. So I'll show you in a second. I'm going to save what I have and hit refresh. Okay, so this is exactly what I wanted. It's the top half of the image that I had, and it's blown up to 400 by 200 pixels in size. So let's say I wanted this to be 400 high as well. Okay, so it's all distorted. That's because we've cut out half the height, so it only makes sense. At the end of the day, our height is going to be half as much as our width, which is why it looks better like this. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show you today on drawing images and pixel art. In the next video, we're going to be starting actually coding our own game engine, so we can start making stuff move around on screen and start actually making the mechanics of our game. So I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.